Well, hello again, all you hapless victims. Let's go ahead and look at a couple more of these questions for the our matching game. And just as a quick review, remember what we have with the rules, right? We have the 3 different recycling centers. They each had to have at least 2. So I highlighted those with the solid bars here, but potentially, possibly 3, which noted with the little dashes. Again, you do you when it comes to how you make your master sketch, but you want to have something that's simple and yet rather, easily interpreted. In this case, where we know we have to fill those 2 in for each of these slots, but then we have a potential third. Okay? And then the other rules were, let's see, we had our players were G, N, P, T, and W. And then the rules, again, as a quick refresher, if we place W, we have to place N. Right? Those 2 have to go together. But very importantly, just as a kind of a review of formal logic, we put the arrow this way. Just because you have N does not necessarily mean that you have W. Right? It's only, this rule kicks in when we have W. Common trap. All right, and the second rule we had was whatever goes in Recycling Center 2 also has to appear in 1. Then vice versa, this one here, only 1 P is allowed in the entire group. And if we have P, we cannot have the G with it. Right. So the other, the final kind of like quick thing that we can deduce from those rules about the placement of these objects would be that since we can only have 1 P and 2 is a mirror image of 1, okay, so it's not a mirror image, but whatever goes in 2 has to also be repeated in 1. That tells us we cannot have P in there, right? Because if I put a P in 2, I'd have to also put it into 1, according to this rule, and doing that would violate the middle rule here, right? Only 1 P. Okay, so with that, just kind of the ground rules stated, let's go ahead and look at some of these questions. I think the goal for this video, to try to keep it within manageable length, is just to handle these 2, and then what I'll do is look at questions 22 and 23 in the next one. And again, everybody, I do tend to babble quite a bit because I want to walk through the thinking process behind handling each of these questions. You're more than welcome to just pause, skip all the way to the end, see which answer choices I highlighted, and go ahead and figure out, how I got there on your own. But for the rest of you brave souls, let's do this. Okay. All right, let's look at 20. It says, if Center 2 recycles 3 kinds of material, then which one of the following must Center 2 recycles 3 kinds of material? Which of the following must Center 3 recycle? All right, now, just going full on, reminding LSAT mode here. When we have a must, it means if we don't do it, if we don't put one of these things in with Center 3, we're going to break a rule. Right? That's the must. It has to go in there. So all of the wrong answer choices would indicate that we would break one of these rules. But let's just unpack this for a moment. All right. If we've got 3 kinds of material in Center 2, that means we've filled up all of the slots, which means that 2 and 1 have to be identical to each other, right? Because if whatever's in 2 is in 1, and there's a maximum of 3 slots, that means these are going to be mirror images. Pause the video just for a moment and cogitate that just for a minute. But if you're okay with it, we'll move on. Now, that doesn't tell us exactly what has to go in there, but what I can infer is that we're going to have to put P in category 3, right? If I put P in, I have to put P in there because if I put P in 2, it's going to have to then appear in 1, and I cannot put P in 1 and not have it in 2 because since we're filling up all of the rows, we have to have them identical to each other. I'm hearing myself speak, and that didn't even make sense to me. So apologies on that one, but hopefully, maybe rewind it a couple times. That should sort of make sense, right? We're going to have P here. Well, let's think about what would we then have to do. Well, we know that what other rules would kick in? We know that if we have P, we can't have G in there, right? So that tells us, well, no G allowed in that column. So that means G is going to have to be in one of these, right? If I can't put G here, it's got to go somewhere. So let's say, since we know that 2 and 1 are going to be identical, we know that they have to have G. Both of them are going to have G, right? All right, so what are we left with now? Let's see here. What else could we deduce? Nothing necessarily further than that. I think that's all I'm seeing at the moment. So we know that this has to be the case. But let's look at this. Let's go down the line. Which one of the following must center through recycle? Do we have to put glass in 3? Well, actually, we know that we can't because we stated that since we have P in there, we cannot have G, so that means that's out, right? That's not going to work. What about B? Do we have to put newsprint in there? Well, when they ask you if we have a must question, one thing that we can think about is, can I do an alternative and not break any rules? So let's supposing in 3, if I don't put N in there, right? Let's just play this out for a minute. So if I don't put N in there, and I know I can't put G in there, and then we already placed P in there, and like they said, let's see, what can we do? We know we have to put at least one more thing in there, right? Didn't say that 3 had to have 3 things. We know we have to at least have 2. So what could we do? Well, if I put W in there, I'd have to then put N, right? We'd have to have this. Well, that's fine. I did not break any rules right there. Or I could put just T by itself, and that'd be fine, right? I mean, that doesn't break any rules either. So it doesn't look like that we would have to put newsprint in 3, right? We have alternative situations that do not break any of our rules. So I would eliminate that one right off the bat. Okay, let's try this. Do we have to put plastic? Well, actually, I think we just answered a question. We do. We do have to put plastic in 3, right? Because if 2 and 1 are going to be mirror images of each other in this scenario, the only place that plastic can go would be in Recycling Center 3. So there's our answer. Done. Yeah, kind of went long on that one, but that's okay. Let's move on to the next question. Let's see. Let me try to erase some of these things so we can reset our board. All right. Let's try to make this relatively quickly. Look at 21. If each recycling center in Rivertown recycles exactly 3 kinds, so we have to put 3 in each one, then which of the following could be true? Well, the could be trues, it's kind of in the same sense. If we don't break any of the rules, then that's our correct answer. And there's not really a whole lot that we can do other than go down the list. But let's just think about the situation here. If each recycling center recycles exactly 3 kinds, then we know that means if we're filling up all of the slots for 1, 2, and 3, we know that for sure we're going to have to just put P in 3, right? I can't put it in 2, because if it's in there, we have to put it in 1, and that breaks this last, the rule right here, right? Only 1 P. So we know that. We then, very similarly to the previous question, we know that we can't put glass in 3, which means glass is going to have to be, so we got to place it somewhere, it's going to have to be in 2 and in 1, right? And then let's think about what else could we deduce. Which one of the following is possible? Let's go down our line. Is it possible that only Center 2 recycles glass? Well, right there we can eliminate it. No, that's impossible. Because if we put glass in 2, we have to also put it in 1 because, all 3 of these are filled up and these 3 also are filled up, so they're going to have to be the same. So that's out. Only Center 3 recycles newsprint. Let's see, does that have to be true? You can kind of look at this and, if we do that, if we just put newsprint here, we're not allowed to put it here. Let's just think about what would happen. Well, we know that if newsprint is in this group, the only rule that has newsprint in it is this one. Wood, therefore, newsprint. So that would tell us we can't put wood in centers 1 or 2, right? Because if we did, then newsprint would have to go in there. So let's just think about this. So for 1 and 2, would we break any rules by not putting wood? What are we left with, right? So if we got G in there already, we can't put wood, according to this rule, and we also can't put P. Can we put N and T in there? I think we can. Look at this. NT, NT. That doesn't break any rules, right? They're still exactly the same. GNT, GNT. So that fits this rule right here. Only 1 P. We're fine. P does not have glass. That's okay. We did place glass over here. We don't have wood in there, so that doesn't break that rule. we're all right. And then what would be, then it's kind of wide open whatever we want to put in over here. Well, I guess we'd have to put, wood's got to go somewhere. We could put wood in there, right, with 3, and that still fits this rule. We have wood and N, or whatever that was, newsprint in there. No rules are broken, is what I'm getting at, kind of doing this a long way. So that does not necessarily have to be true. B is out. We can have an entirely plausible situation where all 3 of them have newsprint in their recycling centers and not break any of our rules. Okay, so let me just clear this out a little bit. Okay, let's try this now. All right, so that is out. What about this one? C, only center 1 recycles plastic. Well, we know that can't be true, just right off the bat, because we have to put P only over there. That's out, right off the bat. What about this? Only 3 has tin. Is this possible? That we could play a scenario where we just have T in the third group and not anywhere else. Let's just try this real quickly. I realize this video is running kind of long, so I try to make this fast. Supposing I put T in here. Well, if that is the case, then that means we're not allowed to put T in either scenario 1 or 2. So let's think about what our options are left for in 1 and 2. Let's look at this. 1 and 2, we put G in there already. We cannot put P in there, and we're not allowed to put T, according to this scenario. So the remaining 2 options that we have are N and W. Can we do that? Well, let's see. N and W, N and W. That's fine so far. No rules broken. But then, what about for 3, PT, can we put something else in there? Well, for this one, we know we can't put G, so our remaining options are that we could put N or W in there. I can't put W, because if I do, then I have to put N in there, but I don't have another slot for that. So that means I would have to put N. Do we break any rules? No, we do not. So therefore, that is in fact a possibility. So the sum up of our answer choices for 20 and 21 would be C, plastic, in this scenario, would have to go in center 3, and in 21, only center 3 recycles tin. That is a possible outcome, right? That is something that could be true. We can sketch that out without breaking any of the rules. Hopefully that was somewhat helpful. We will resume the remaining 2 questions in the next video.